Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator, back with another amazing author in our 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. And today I am joined by Neil Rogers, who is the author of, now I know you guys see some, looks like beer on here, but just stick with us. Bar Tips, everything I needed to know in sales, I learned behind the bar. And let me just tell you, as an entrepreneur, sales is something that I have struggled with my entire entrepreneurial journey. So, the title alone sucked me in because I'm like, is there a different approach to sales that I'm not using to be successful? And bars can be pretty lucrative. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Dr. Campbell, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Neil, tell our listening, viewing audience a little bit about your background.
Oh, take a quick journey down my life. I'm the seventh of eight of an Irish Catholic family. I went in and out of college for about 8 years. All the while, I spent time in the hospitality business, where I realized I found something that I could be good at, and that was working with people. And so, but I also knew that I didn't want that to be my life's work behind the bar. I want to work Saturday nights for the rest of my life. I'm happy to work Saturdays, but not as a general, not as a part of the schedule every week. And so after that, after I graduated college, I had struggled my way through, but I came on the other side and really came out to be a good student. And then I took all those principles, some of those principles that I learned how to get through school, and started my journey, and along with my interpersonal skills that I developed with working in the hospitality business. And I took those on the road. And I sold food for about 2 years, was very successful at that. And then I went into the athletic footwear and apparel business for about 8 years and was very successful in that. And then for the last 27 years, my wife and I have got a swag business. So we do
Nice.
all the corporate logo stuff, and it's been very good to us. And we've, been has just had a lot of, same type of deal. We did very well with it in our lane. We've been very happy with what we've done.
I love that experience. I am reminded, I'm only 52, but I'm reminded of my first job at McDonald's. Now, I know some people say, what could you have possibly gained from McDonald's? And after being there for 3 years, I was in high school and um, wanted to help my mother out with, just our basic needs. And during my time there, I got promoted pretty quickly. I went to Hamburger University, and I really learned at McDonald's how to manage people, processes, how to be a good steward of resources. And back then, I didn't really understand how significant that was. But then when I transitioned to healthcare as a leader who was responsible for a budget and other resources, all of those skills came in handy. But I think most importantly, what I learned was, as a person who was younger than everyone else, I learned very quickly the importance of relationships and how I could get the staff to do whatever I needed them to do, because of the fact that I was personable. There were no big I's and little U's, right? Everybody was there for the common goal. And I should maybe write a book about my McDonald's tips to not be the same as yours, but really um, just demonstrate how you shouldn't leave any experience in life behind because it always can add value to you.
So interesting. I want to say a couple of weeks ago now. It was around the holidays, so maybe around Christmas time or so. Yeah, it was before Christmas. I went down to Starbucks, and so I right down the street here, and you pull up to the squawky box there, right? Good morning. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? What can I get started for you today? Really, you know, robust greeting, right? And I said, well, I'm coming around. I couldn't wait to see who this was. And it was this young woman. I said, where's my greeter? Oh, that was me. Oh, great. So tell me. So we had a few minutes because I get a pour over a Americano. So it takes a little bit. I said, tell me about yourself. What do you do? Well, I'm a student. I'm a student at ASU. Oh, good. Great. I'm graduating this year, but I do it online. I said, oh, okay. Are you going to go out to the graduation? Oh, yeah. I said, get a bunch of your buddies and your online buddies and go out, go walk. So we went back and forth, and I said, do not discount what you've learned here. And I'm going to show you how this works. I got my wife coffee and I had coffee. It was $8. They had 3 choices on the tips. I went, you're getting a $5 tip today because of the way that you've been with me right now. And if I have a copy of my book, I tell her I wrote a book on it, bar tips, yada, 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 about the hospitality business. And I said, if I've got one in my trunk, I'm coming back in with it. So I went out. I had one left in my trunk. So I brought her a pen, a bar tips pen. I signed it. I gave it to her. And I'm going to give you a little tip right now on top of what you learned here. You see what I just did? Yeah. Always do what you say you're going to do. And I walked away.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Now, I've been known to frequent Starbucks myself, and it's funny you mentioned the customer service. And one of the things that I do, I don't know if you do this all the time, but I do this. So I pull up to the drive-through, and it really doesn't matter where I'm at. When I say hello, or they say hello first, right? I always like to pause the interaction by just saying, how are you? How was your day? I think that we have become so accustomed to being in a hurry for everything that we've lost sight of that personal touch, the connections that we can establish. And I believe that there is always something we can do or say to help someone else. And I'm glad you mentioned about having your books in your trunk, because I had mine in my trunk. My husband was like, get these books out of the trunk. However, there have been many times where I've had conversations with individuals who are falling on some hard times. And I wish I would have had the opportunity right then and there to give them the book and chat with them a little bit about how, life has its ups and downs, right? But if you continue on the path, you will get to the other side. So I just learned something from you about my book. I'm going to tell my husband, Paul, Neil said, put the books back in the trunk.
You got it. You got it. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we were all trying to spread our word too, right? So what I try to do, and I'm not saying I bat 1,000 on this. I don't bat 1,000 on much, but I try to get them to engage with me after they've read it. Now they have to have read it, which is the first thing. It's like, I live here on campus in a golf community here in New Hampshire. And any of the people in the restaurant, I give them positive activity bracelets, and I give them, the bartenders, I give books. And I said, don't worry, it's not going to be a book report or anything yet, but I really am I sincerely give them a card and say, text me when you're ready to chat about it, and we'll walk through it. A lot of times what has happened is that friends have had typically young men, 20, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, kind of lost their way a little bit. Not, they just haven't got their footing, I guess is probably a better term, which is really where I was I graduated high school at 17 years old, ill prepared for anything. And so I wish I had me to talk me through some stuff and kind of point out some things and give me a little process to help me get going. I've been very successful with that, and I'm very proud of that. So this young woman I think she's got the world by the tail. So I'm not worried about her at all. But because if you can do that, and just yesterday, so I'm in PT for this shoulder I don't want to tell you all about
I'm
it,
in
but
PT as well for my ankle. We're like
yeah.
twins.
Well, how about this, huh? And so we get hospitality in common, and so there's a love my new PT. She's wonderful, and she's part of a group that I know the owner, and she's got a kid, a young man with her. He's kind of an observer, intern. So I've gotten to know him a little bit, and then I just noticed one day he's over there. He's not looking at his phone. He's a freshman in college. He's not looking at his phone. He's cleaning up after her, cleaning up the tables that somebody was on, wiping them all down, for sanitation, and then asking the little things, jumping in where he can. So I said to him yesterday, I said, you know something, David, keep this course. Always stay involved, over deliver, which is what you're doing right now. And here it is. I've yet told another person about David. I don't even know his last name, but he is getting a book tomorrow in my PT this week. So I just think I think people like that should be rewarded and recognize that you get it. Keep doing this. Be kind, be humble, jump in. Wash the dishes. Take care of your mom, your dad. Do something nice. Some sort of random act of well, my wife likes to call it a conscious act of kindness. It's so yeah. So I mean, I think it gives me hope for the youth when I run into these people. I have a 34-year-old man with autism, our son.
Oh my God, Neil,
Oh boy, don't
Neil,
tell me, don't tell me we're kin there too, are we?
Neil. One of the things I love about 52 Authors, 52 Weeks is that you guys sign up to come onto the show. I purchase your book. I start to read your book. We don't have a meeting ahead of time. We just come on and record. And we learn that we are much more alike than we are different. So, my daughter Jasmine will be 33 this year. She is also autistic.
God bless you.
Wow, Neil. We're like cousins now, Neil.
Already, yeah.
So,
So if that's the case, then you're related to Mark Wahlberg too.
hey, you know what? I would love to be related to Mark Wahlberg.
Because my paternal grandmother, who I never met, she died when my father was 17, and my grandfather died when he was 5 or 6. Is first cousins with Arthur Donnelly, which is Mark and Donnie's grandfather. So I don't know what that makes us, but it's just that you'll read it. It's if you haven't got there yet, it's in the book.
Okay. So
So
listen,
yeah,
I want to talk a little bit about the book, and I don't want to tell the listening viewing audience everything that's in the book because I really believe in our listening viewing audience hearing about the book from the author, but then taking the next step and purchasing the book. So after all of this experience, what made you decide to take the experience and bottle it up and put it in a book?
honestly,
Yes.
to try to keep myself from losing my mind during COVID.
Wow.
That was, and it was interesting. So what I would do is I would, and I still do this every day, some way, shape, or form, whether it's a conscious act of kindness or reach out to somebody I haven't talked to in a while. A friend of mine's mom died today, and I want to make sure that I can't be there this weekend at the to honor her. So I said, we're getting a coffee. You're going to tell me his mother's nickname was Pinky. You're going to tell me Pinky stories. Deal? Deal. Okay. So we're getting together at some point. So, anyways, but back then during COVID, I would do it, and invariably I'd get a phone call back. Right? How you doing? Because everybody's feeling the same way. Right? We're all just like, what am I doing? What's going on? Come on, give me a break. And so this one guy called me back, and he was a guy who was a wildly successful general agent for Mass Mutual, but he drank himself into a new liver.
Mm,
Right. So he got his new liver, and I'm speaking to him 18 months removed from that. And do you remember the movie Groundhog Day with Bill
no.
Murray?
Mm.
Okay, put it on your list because
On my list.
Groundhog Day's coming up.
And my grandmother, who's no longer here, was born on Groundhog Day. So I
Right.
got to watch it now.
And Bill Murray and what's the other woman? Doesn't matter. But anyways, he's repeating the same day over and over again. Right? It's what happens. Just wakes up. It's the same. I got you, babe, from Sonny and Cher on the radio. Same. Everything's the same. And so he then discovers this and starts learning things. Like all of a sudden he's a jazz pianist. Never played the piano before. So, anyways, my joke to Terry was, "What are you?" Because he's telling me I've written a book. I've developed a process on how to write a book. I've done this. I've done that. Yet I said, "What are you, Bill Murray from Groundhog Day? How does this? How do you do all this in 18 months?" So he goes, "You should write a book." I said, What have I got to write on? And I've written some ditties and whatnot. And I just had an experience. We just had an experience where one of our people that we worked in the first bar I worked at, the place called the Full Sail on the beach in Whitehorse Beach, Plymouth, America's hometown. It was his birthday. It was his 70th birthday. Now it's 58 at the time. And I'm going, you're 12 years old. I didn't even know he was that much older than me, because he acted just like we did, which wasn't old, I promise you. So, anyways, we have this wonderful get together, and I had made I got the old T-shirt art, and I recreated the T-shirt. So I gave everybody T-shirts. We got pictures, and it was just a love fest. It was unbelievable. It was really great. So I wrote a whole thing on that, right? And then I had written something on another friend of ours from that era. So we're in Whitehorse Beach. That's kind of that place. You may have had one growing up where you went every time. In the summer, you went for a week here, or you went for over weekends, whatever it is. And that was our place. We kicked our shoes off when we got there in late June, and they went back on Labor Day. Literally, we were barefoot all summer, right? Could
Nice.
run over glass, right? So, so I wrote something on that because one of our friends' husband was dying of ALS. So I was kind of like recalling all this. So I had that piece, this piece. And because I had realized about 3 years prior to that, my daughter was honored here right on campus where we live now in the clubhouse, in the ballroom, by the Chamber of Commerce as, people 30 to watch under 30, like the, up and comers. Yeah. The Chamber, they've got an award for everything. So the guy who gave the keynote speech was the guy who brought Five Guys Burgers to New Hampshire. And if you ever, maybe you did this at McDonald's, pre-meal, before you started your shift, a little bit of a what's going on, what's out, what's this. Probably not as much at McDonald's, because everything was pretty formulaic. But you may have run out of chicken McNuggets. I don't know, right? But you also give a rah-rah speech. So his rah-rah speech went like this: "We're not in the burger business. We're not in the fry business. We're not in the soda business. We're not in the shake business. We're in the hospitality business." I went just like this to my wife. In point of context, I met her. I was a bartender. She was a food server in a restaurant in Boston. I turned to her. I said, "I've never left the bar business. I've been bartending on the road for 30 plus years." So, and then I had done some research on other businesses, and you'll read that in chapter 3, on what they did. There's a clothing store in Atlanta. There's a financial services firm. Of course, there's Starbucks, Geico. People that do these engaging things, hospitality wise, for their customers. So I had that piece. And then I just started interviewing and writing down like all the things I thought were important, that were important as a bartender, as a hospitality person, and clearly as important as when you are out on the road selling. And that's kind of how it all just started to come together. And then I just looked up at the end. I interviewed people that own places that I worked at. I worked with one of the guys. One of the guys was, everybody. He was a union bartender, so he was collecting unemployment. He got the bump from the government, and he's painting my deck. And I just would bring out, "Hey Phil, what do you think of this?" "Oh yeah, that's the one. Oh yeah, I get that." So that's kind of how it all came about. And I remember looking at, I finally read when it was all put together, and I read the manuscript unedited, and I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, this is pretty good.
If I don't say it myself,
I
right?
mean, it's like, I mean, I was like going, I mean, because you're just fumbling around. I've never written anything that big before, and I'm mapping it out on big artist pads. All sorts of notes. Matter of fact, our next book, which will probably be out in the next few months, and you're gonna love this one. I'll tell you about it in a second. We'll hold it back for now. I just went to, we have a whiteboard in the basement, and I've written a lot of the outline for it, but there's one chapter that we want to go with, and I'll tell you about. I think you'll find it interesting. I wrote the what could be the title. I don't think it's going to be the title of the chapter. And then I just scribbled down a bunch of notes. I told my wife as she was walking by one day, say, "See what I did there? Stop putting notes on there. Just look at it. Whatever comes in your head, dump it." And that's kind of how it all came about. And so it's been a wonderful experience. Publishing stinks. Not gonna lie. I will be completely self-publishing this next one. There'll be no intermediary for me. I will be doing it all on my own. Going right to Amazon, right? We know how to do it. I mean, I did that book cover. Do you think my publisher designed that book cover? You're looking at the guy who designed the book cover.
So let me ask a question now
Sure.
that I'm looking at the book cover a different way. So you got the cup of beer, you
Yep.
got the tip jar in the middle. This isn't a mask on the end, is it?
No, briefcase.
It's a briefcase. Oh, because you
The
said you
old
did it
style
during
briefcase.
COVID.
Yeah. The old style briefcase. Now everybody uses backpacks,
Yes.
as do I.
Well, because you know what? Carrying the bag is a little strenuous on your body.
Sure.
So it's interesting that you wrote this book in a time where everybody was kind of struggling to figure out what to do with life. And you know, it's so interesting. During the pandemic, I actually brought my daughter home because she lives in a four-bedroom house with other special needs women.
Sure.
And so she was home with us. We looked up and it was 6 months later, and she was still at home with us. And we were just literally going about our day. But I learned so much from that 6 month time period. And when it was time for her to go back, which they kept calling me every month, like, when is Jasmine coming back? I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I'll let you know when she's coming back. What was so funny was when we dropped her back off, and she's also deaf. She didn't even look back at us. She got out the car probably like, I'm done fooling with you all. 6 months is too long. But I learned so much about myself. I actually learned more about her because, you know, getting her on a weekend or just getting her for 1 week is totally different than a 6 month stint. Um, but I would not have traded that experience for the world. Never.
Sure.
So I want to call out a couple of areas of the book, and I'm not finished with the book because I have two stacks of books on my desk. One where I'm reading, I call it my Lisa pile. That's my book that I'm reading for my personal development. So right now, I'm actually reading the book called The YouTube Formula, and pretty interesting. And then I have all of the 52 authors books. And so what I do with you guys' books, I, start reading it. And then once I drop that other book, I jump back into your book. But I see this book having multiple audiences. So number one, definitely for entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurial journey is a journey, and it has its ups and downs, but it's also very rewarding. But one of the things that you mentioned about your book is that about treating others well so that you can build that strong, long lasting, productive, right relationship. And one of the things that I'm really concerned about with the era of social media is that a lot of the young people, including my own adult children, um, don't know how to communicate as well because all they want to do is text, right? And me, I want to see your face. I want to hear you, because that's how I can pick up on when things aren't necessarily going well. And so I think this book really speaks to a lot of different audiences. And I want to know. So you wrote this during the pandemic. You got it all on ink, as they say. What's your favorite chapter in the book? And don't say all of them.
Well, I think, especially as it relates to, I think, there was a friend of mine, he lives in California. He comes back every year spends time with us in the summer. And he said, Neil, I read your book. I really liked it. Is that how you did the other stuff too? I said, yep, that's it. So it's life stuff. It's also business stuff, and when we adhere to it, and nobody bats 1,000, right? Got to give yourself some grace. I mean, you write these things, you talk about these things, you speak on them. I'm speaking to you so that I remember to do them myself. So here's one that I think is a can't miss for life. Jim Gallahue was a wise guy salesman that I worked with at a place called SS Pierce. It was a food distributorship that I worked for. He was one of the tops of the trees guys. So I want to do whatever Jimmy wanted, I did. I delivered stuff for him. I did whatever he wanted. And then I covered his route. And he was like a wise guy around when you're having a beer with him or whatever around the office. But you got you get him in front of a customer, transformed, different guy. So you get to watch that. And he knew his products, and he knew the business. He had peripheral knowledge, which is a chapter in the book. But one of the greatest lessons he taught me was, whenever anything goes wrong, start here. What was my role in this? How could I have done better? Bunch of things come out of that. One is, you're less likely to do it again if you even if it was somebody else's somebody else's fault. You know how to guard against that. Okay, now that I know that this customer service person needs a little bit more guidance, I better give him or her more guidance. But it really disarms everybody. And key to it is if you can get that done without the customer ever knowing that something was messed up, even better. So don't be blaming the truck. So in this case, you might get the truck driver, you might get the customer service person, whatever. Don't do it. Oh, you know what? I don't know what happened. I probably did something, let me take care of it. It'll be done by the end of the day. Or better yet, it just shows up when they notice something was wrong. So that's really, that's one that will help you. I think it helps you with all your relationships. Be the first to say, I'm sorry. Okay, I could have done better. I'm sorry. So I think that's it's towards the end of the book, but it's really key to an advanced relationship. This person is your customer. They've been with you a long time. They've shown you grace. Now it's like, okay, okay, that's on me. Let me just take care of that. Let me just take care. Oh, by the way, I'm not charging you for that. Don't worry about it.
I love it. I love it. And you know what's so weird? What you just explained was some of the strategies that I used at McDonald's. And it just came natural to me for us to, me as the leader, to own the mistake. And I think a lot of times leaders don't want to own any mistakes, right? They just want to be perfect all the time, and no one is perfect. And
Nope.
so giving ourselves grace, and I'm going to use your wife's word, making a conscious effort to be good to people, like you said, apologize. Those are life lessons that we all need.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good takeaway. It's and that's what Jerry, my buddy, was talking about. You know, when we put together all the stuff we did for special needs, we'll do that off. You and I will talk about that off book. But
Yes.
yeah, but yeah. So it's just so that's I would say that's the number. The rest of it is it's all pretty fundamental. But that's one where you've got to just like leave your ego at the door, go on the sword, whatever metaphor we want to use, and just fix the problem. And here's the ditty that goes with it, the saying, if you will. You ready? Being right, it's overrated.
Being right is overrated. Okay, so when I tell my husband that tonight, I'm going to see what his reaction is, because we have this thing where I think I'm always right, and a lot of the times I'm right, but I don't have to be right, right? But it is definitely overrated. It is definitely
Yeah,
overrated.
I mean, if you won and he feels bad, how does that feel?
Right, right, right. And I don't want him to feel bad.
Right. Yeah. So,
So Neil, listen,
yes.
our time is almost up, and
Okay.
I wanted to do two last things. One, I want to make sure everybody purchase their own copy of the book, Bar Tips. And if you look at the spine, it's not a very long book. For me, as an avid reader, all I need really is probably about, and I read pretty fast too. However,
Three
I
hours.
like to highlight. Well, it might be 5 hours for me,
Okay.
because I have to highlight, I have to write notes in the margin, just
Sure.
because, and you talk about this as the title for chapter 13 about knowledge is power. I'm reading the book to walk away with something.
Right.
And but I also like to identify what was I write down the date and the time that I go from chapter to chapter, and I'm reflecting on what else is going on in my life at the same time that may impact how I'm receiving the information. And do I need to take a conscious pause to stop and think? So that's the type of reader I am. Probably a little crazy, but I can go back to books and open them up and see things that I've highlighted or put a circle around and say, yeah, this is where I learned that from.
Famous old restaurant owner that actually was also an uncle, a buddy of mine. He had these little interesting sayings. He goes, "Whatever works works, and that's what's important."
Absolutely. So then my last thing is, where can our listening viewing audience can definitely get the book on Amazon, but where can they find you?
Uh, great to find. Check me out on positiveactivity.net. That is a chapter in the book, but we don't go into real depth on the book. It's just kind of a highlight. It's a whole program we have that my wife and I have developed. It dovetails with the book, and so the book. It's actually best, team out there in the audience, to go there to click on buy the book here, to go that route, because Amazon search criteria can be a little weird at times. So it'll take you right there, and we appreciate you buying it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for stopping by virtually. 52 authors, 52 weeks. And everyone else out there, don't forget, buy the book, bar tips, and we will see